I've been watching this issue very closely. I was staying up late just looking at reactions to it, and I have actually seen no supporters of C-63 other than paid activists or people who think they will get paid from it. There is no demand for this. Canadians are talking about a lot of things out there: grocery prices, rent prices, out of control immigration, carbon taxes, traffic, waiting lists for healthcare, waiting lines for schools. There's a lot of things people are upset about. I mean, have you ever heard anyone wandering around saying, what we need is for the government to set up not one, not two, but 3 new censorship agencies and have a life in prison? Like I've never heard any person say that. Bernie Farber, a grifter who is with the anti-hate network, or used to be at least, he loves this because this is his business. Stephen Camp, who for years was with the Edmonton Police Hate Unit and is now on a Trudeau hate team, he loves it. And to my great embarrassment, one of the official Jewish agencies in this country, called CIJA, which I think stands for Council for Israel and Jewish Affairs, they came out big time for it. I was deeply embarrassed that they did so in my name. The J in CIJA is Jewish. I'm Jewish. They didn't ask me. Here's what they wrote. Tell your member of parliament to support Canada's Jews and Bill C-63. And then they have a link. They say, as Jews know all too well, what happens online does not stay online. It affects our community, our children in real life. On Monday, February 26th, Minister of Justice Arif Virani tabled the long-awaited Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act. With this act, we have a chance to diminish Jew hatred online. Just scroll down underneath that tweet to see all the replies, mainly from pro-Jewish people, pro-Jewish allies, that is, not Jews themselves, but Christians and conservatives saying, what are you doing? I recognize some of the names on there. There are some Jews saying, don't do this in my name, but there's some righteous Gentiles saying this is a quick way to lose a lot of friends. Now, the first thing to say is that CIJA is on Trudeau's payroll. Here's a link showing just a portion of the grants that they receive from the government. I counted up about $250,000 there from Trudeau. I don't know, I guess money talks. But imagine being the Jewish lobby and supporting Trudeau. Imagine supporting these guys. Here's Mark Miller, who's in cabinet only because he was part of Justin Trudeau's wedding party. Like he is a wholly untalented and incompetent man, but he's been given important files because he was there at Trudeau's wedding. Here he is saying that Jews in Gaza who were kidnapped by Hamas, including babies, they're not the hostages. The hostages are the Gazans themselves. Look at this.
I undertook with my cabinet colleagues to help push the local authorities, including Israel and Egypt, to make sure that we could facilitate their transition into Cairo and then complete biometrics and then to Canada so that they can be in safety. So it's very frustrating to me. I don't want to put together a program that is failing, but we are all failing Gazans at this point. And I think that is something that we need to realize. They are under, it's probably the largest hostage taking right now in the world. And it is something that if Canada can play a small role in it, we can't be everything to everyone, but if Canada can play a role in this, in getting people out and safe, we're willing to play it. But right now, we haven't had the success that we wanted to.
And here's a clip from later in the day when Melanie Joly, the foreign minister, was asked about a massacre of Gazans by Israel, but it wasn't by Israel. It was by Hamas. They drove an aid truck over starving Gazans that Hamas was stealing the aid from. It was Hamas that killed the Gazans. The question was put to Joly. She obviously knew what the facts were, but she went with it because the Liberal Party of Canada has gone full pro-Hamas. Here, watch for yourself.
This morning, an Israeli attack killed at least 112 Palestinians waiting for food aid in Gaza. At this point, what more can you do now that you've called for a ceasefire to urge Israel to stop?
Indeed, we have called for a ceasefire. When it comes to what happened in Gaza today, you've heard me. I must say, I think this is a nightmare. I think the violence must stop. I think civilians can not be targeted. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that international aid is sent into Gaza and that people are protected when they go and get that aid that they need to survive. So we are calling for both parties to respect the International Court of Justice decision, and at all times, international humanitarian law must be respected.
Here's the drone footage showing what happened. It wasn't Israeli troops that killed them. It was Hamas on the truck and driving the truck. Imagine thinking that these are the good guys. Well, let me show you what I wrote to CIJA. And I should tell you that, I don't know, about a decade ago or a little more than that, I was actually on the board of directors of the precursor organization to CIJA called the Canada-Israel Community. It was a volunteer position. I was not elected to it. CIJA is not elected by Jews. They claim to speak for Jews, but they're just sort of self-appointed in that regard. They're actually recruited by big donors who are mainly Montreal Jewish liberals. I was sort of the token conservative. They thought they'd better bring me aboard because they knew this was, I guess, more than 10 years ago now. They knew that Stephen Harper was coming up and the liberals were going to go into the wilderness for a while, and they wanted to have some connection to the conservatives. So I got to see them from the inside. Let me read to you what I wrote online in response to CIJA. I said, "This is a disgrace, and it is not supported by ordinary Jews. This is a statement by official Jews who happen to have been paid $250,000 by Trudeau." And I had a link that I showed you earlier. I said, they're Trudeau's house Jews, willing to sell out their own interests for a few bucks. They're the corporate equivalent of Anthony Housefather. He's the Liberal cabinet minister who has decided keeping his cabinet minister's chauffeured limousine and expense account is more important to him than representing his conscience or his constituents. Philosophically, censorship is contrary to Jewish ethics of debate and dissent. 2 Jews, 3 opinions, goes the saying. Democratically, CIJA has no mandate to say this on behalf of anyone. Not that they ever do. CIJA's board is handpicked by liberal-affiliated donors, not elected by grassroots Jews, but pragmatically, this censorship law will be used against Jews and Zionists. The woke left already says Zionism is racism. This law will weaponize that. Existing human rights laws have already been used to outlaw criticism of Islam as Islamophobia. I myself was prosecuted for 900 days for publishing the Danish cartoons of Mohammed, and Mark Stein was too for questioning unlimited immigration. These official Jews think it's 1990, when they had a monopoly on political cancel culture, when the Muslim population in Canada was trivial, and when the threat was harmless, poor, white anti-Semites with obscure blogs. Today, the anti-Israel left dominates cancel culture, and anti-Semites are rich, powerful, and more numerous than the Jews. It's a laugh to think that Trudeau cares about anti-Semitism. He allows it in his own caucus, in his own cabinet, and he indulges in it himself. Time after time, his government hires brutal Jew haters to senior positions in government, from Amira El-Gawabi to Laith Marouf to Omar Al-Gabra. Do the official Jews really think that Trudeau's going to stop the tidal wave of Islamist and leftist anti-Semitism online when he abides it in real life? It's already against the criminal code to, quote, promote anti-Semitism by condoning, denying, or downplaying the Holocaust. That's actually in the criminal code, section 319. It's already against the criminal code to, quote, advocate or promote genocide. That is section 318. That is against the law. It's a crime right now. Yet both of those things are happening every day in the streets of Toronto and Montreal and elsewhere, and Trudeau hasn't said a word against it, let alone prosecute anyone. Why would the official Jews think that Trudeau would suddenly turn into a savior of the Jews online? The official Jews are just an arm of the Liberal Party, I wrote. The former head of the Canada-Israel Committee, Mark Gold, is now Trudeau's leader in the Senate. CIJA's support for the censorship is not in the Jewish interest, but it is in Trudeau's interest, and that's what's important to them. The majority of Canadians, time and again, tell pollsters they're against government censorship, and those numbers are highest amongst conservatives, the very people who support Israel the most. CIJA's support for Trudeau's censorship will not convince a single person, but it will antagonize the Jews' remaining friends in Canada. This is stupid, self-destructive, dishonest, and partisan. The fact that CIJA's position is identical to the position of the Islamist National Council for Canadian Muslims tells you all you need to know. If this were 1940, CIJA would be auditioning for the role of the Judenrat. So gross, or as the Jews would say, a shanda for the Goyim. In Yiddish, that means a shame unto the people. It was an embarrassment for the Jewish community and the broader community. I'm embarrassed for them, and it's stupid. Do they really think that Justin Trudeau is suddenly going to go to war against anti-Semitism? And what does it mean to go against the war, anti-Semitism online, when you've got actual violence on the streets, Molotov cocktails thrown at schools and synagogues, let alone just basic things like extremely violent graffiti around Toronto, harassment of people, smashing things, terrifying people at Jewish-run businesses, going into malls masked up and threatening people with murder. You think the problem is some tweet? The problem's in the streets. What fools would think, oh, banning things on the internet will solve this problem that way? That's what the Liberal Party would say, not what any Jewish advocates would say. I'm embarrassed for them.